Happy Breakaway Alpha Day, everybody. This is Mac and Jeeves coming to you from DC, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys on the release of Breakaway Alpha Day 1. I even have my Breakaway t-shirt on. I'm really excited about, but I am also very excited to be here to bring you the patch notes for the alpha release. This is the 0.1 patch notes, and for a lot of you guys who haven't had your gotten a chance to play the game yet, this might be a little bit weird for you, but I want to kind of go through, explain the patch notes to give a little context, and hopefully from here on out do a quick video to give anybody who doesn't like to read an idea of what's going on in the new patches. So let's go ahead and get through these guys. So the first thing that comes around is Alona. Alona is the current healer in Breakaway, and the basic things that they came out with were she was so strong as a healer that she was completely necessary in the team, in a team composition. If you played without an Alona, you were pretty much destined to lose the match. So they kind of reduced that a little bit. One of the big changes that they made right here is that Alona actually uses a reticle now for her basic attacks, which is awesome. One of the biggest issues between both of the supports, Alona and Morgan Le Fay, is that you had to be facing in the direction that you wanted to cast your basic attack. For Alona, her basic attacks used to heal your teammates, but no longer do that. So now they're reticle based, so you can actually point and click where you want to shoot, which is great. Again, a primary attack for Alona only hits enemies. They no longer heal allies. Again, one of the biggest things that the developers were seeing was that Alona was just too good at what she did. She was the healer, and her heals were just way too powerful. You could basically run around and spam your basic attack, keeping all of your allies up. And they wanted to move away from her being basic attack focused and more of ability-based warrior. So that's a big change, is that her primary attacks are no longer going to be healing the allies. Primary attacks, they're going to be doing a little bit less damage, and this is based on the fact that she's now reticle based, so her basic attacks should be a little bit easier to hit now. So instead of being facing in a specific direction and potentially missing, you're going to be probably hitting more often than not. So they brought her damage a little bit down a little bit. They also brought her health down by 50. They reduced her cooldown of her ability 1 from 6 seconds to 4 seconds. And again, this is mainly to reinforce the idea that she's an ability-based warrior, and that her one ability, her Radiance, is going to be her main heal, not her basic attack. They also reduced the damage of her the base damage of her ability 2, as well as the attack strength ratio. And for most of you guys out there, if you're coming from a game like Smite or something, the attack strength ratio is basically the scaling, how much attack damage or healing, as it were, she gets from adding attack damage in her from her buys in the store. So her Sunburst ability, or ability 2, will now do 35 damage rather than 41, and the attack strength ratio is reduced from 0.6 to 0.5. So not a huge difference, excuse me, in the attack strength ratio, but kind of toning that down a little bit. And Bonnie wasn't touched very much in this patch. I also think that Anne Bonnie, probably of the range damage dealers, probably wasn't played as much. So we might be seeing some more changes in the future as she gets played more often, I think. But her one ability, her long shot, as well as her ultimate, the Hull Buster, they've changed that around to make the scaling a little bit lower. Kind of what the developers were seeing was that she was scaling way too fast, and by the second or third round she was just shredding. So the ability 1, her long shot, the attack strength ratio was reduced from 1.0 to 0.75. and the ultimate attack damage, the ultimate attack strength ratio was reduced from 1.1 to 1.0. So not a huge change, but the scaling is going to be a little bit slower for Anbani. Now my Bay, the Black Knight. Unfortunately, the Black Knight took a big hit in this patch, but I kind of saw this coming. The Black Knight played way too many roles. He was an indestructible bruiser. He was able to go into fights, just not die. He was able to disrupt way too much, and you can even build him attack damage and do a crazy amount of damage. So they ended up toning down the base armor. He's down from 20 to 15, so yeah, reduced that by 5. And then the defense ability armor buff is reduced from 25 to 15 as well. So that's when they're using the defense ability or right click. Your buff for the defense is reduced by 10 there. And that's just, again, he was just staying alive way too long. So they kind of want to make it a little bit tougher for him. Still, once you start building rank 4 of your armor, you're still going to be able to get into those fights and really just take a lot of damage. The ultimate cooldown has been increased from 20 to 25 seconds. The reason for this is because it was becoming too disruptive. They ended up, the Black Knight was able to go in and just all the time just dropping his ultimate, pulling everybody in with the ultimate. They're calling Dark Call now, and so they've increased that cooldown by 5 seconds. Primary base damage, again, they've reduced it from 25 to 20 seconds. Primary attack strength ratio, the scaling, has been reduced from 0.5 to 0.45. So not a huge difference on the scaling, but the base attack damage has been reduced as well. And again, this is one of those things where they're saying that he can easily slide from being a tank into a fighter and actually, do some real damage. So they scaled that down. This is actually kind of a cool thing that they did with both Black Knight and Thorgrim. Canceling out of the primary attack into an ability happens 6 frames faster now. So when they're talking about frames, they're talking about 1/60th of a second. So it's very, very small. But so that's a 1/10 of a second essentially. Now it's going to a 1/10 of a second faster. The attack would basically you would swing your attack, and then it would feel like it kind of hangs there for a second. So they basically brought that back so that you can swing your attack and then go straight into an ability just a 1/10 of a second faster. They also increased the back tick check from 10 to 12 ticks for canceling out a primary attack. And again, the ticks is based on 1/60th of a second. Movement speed, they reduced by 0.5. This gives Black Knight a little bit less of an ability to kind of run around the map and cause havoc, but I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. This is kind of more of a balance thing and not really a nerf or I mean, it's a little bit of a nerf, but I don't know that we're going to notice it too much. Personally, I like running movement speed on my Black Knight anyway, so the damage done by player's siege engine is reduced from 50 to 25, and this is only on players. The siege engine, this is Black Knight's 2, I think, his second buildable, by the way. The siege engine no longer launches opponents on contact; it only knocks them back. So 2 things. One, a lot of players were starting to use the siege engine as a something to attack other players with. It was just another attack. So to kind of prevent that and to use it more in the way that it was meant to be used, which was destroying buildables, the developers reduced the amount of damage that it does on players. So again, only on players it's reduced by from 50 to 25, so reduced by 25. The siege engine no longer launches an opponent on contact. When it would hit an opponent, it would actually throw them back pretty far. So now it only just does a quick knockback. So it's not as detrimental if you get hit by a Black Knight siege engine. They also decreased the recovery and increased hit stun for ability 2. it's now +3, which is kind of cool. So the Cruel Summons, if I remember correctly, is the overhead smash basically for with his axe, which caused a stun. Now the issue that they were seeing with this is that Black Knight would hit with the overhead smash, would stun somebody out, and then there would not be enough time for a follow-up. So now with that extra second, you can hit an enemy with the stun, and then actually go up and hit them again to bully them a little bit more. So a little bit of a buff there, but generally speaking, they've reduced the armor, the starting armor. They've increased the cooldown of the ultimate, and they've done some kind of quality of life changes on his attack frames, as well as his Cruel Summons. So kind of some cool changes with Black Knight. I think these will be fine. I don't think he'll take too much of a hit, especially if you're going around and getting gold and still able to build that armor on the Black Knight. So Morgan Le Bay, as we like to call her. So she, like Alona, is now has reticle based attacks, so you no longer have to be facing the way you're shooting, which is a beautiful thing. This was probably one of the most requested things that I was hearing through the community, was the fact that we love Alona, we love Morgan Le Fay especially. We want to play more of her, but her basic attacks always felt very weird to try and hit them. So I'm really happy that they went with a reticle based attacks. This kind of makes it so that if you can go from a Anne Bonny or a Rollins and go to a caster like Morgan Le Fay or like Alona, and you'll have those same it'll play the same way with your basic attacks. The Circle of Spite now has an additional effect that slows an enemy navigation by 35%. This is going to be crazy, I think. So one of the another issue with Morgan was her Circle of Spite was really cool. It gives a debuff that increases damage done to enemies while they're in the Circle of Spite. The issue is that you would throw down the Circle of Spite, and then the enemies would scatter, and your Circle of Spite's on cooldown for another however long. So this is cool because now you can throw down your Circle of Spite and actually take advantage of it. And I think that was part of the issue, was that it was kind of hard to take advantage of it. The devs also said that they want Morgan to be more disruptive, and I think that's her style, is to be disruptive, be that debuffer, and this really gives that extra kick that is going to make Morgan a very viable choice in the alpha. So I'm excited to see some more Morgan play. I'm excited to play Morgan myself, honestly. So another cool change is that the Aura of Silence is now an instant AoE and silences enemies for 5 seconds. So what Morgan used to have was you would run in, hit your Aura of Silence, which would you would see all these crows flying around you, and basically anybody that's caught in those crows would be silenced while they were in that area. Once they step out of that area, they were still able to use their abilities. People like Anne Bonny could step out of the crows and just start shooting the Morgan, or attacking or whatever, like nothing happened. So now the Aura of Silence is going to be an instant AoE. It's going to basically, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we'll say it explodes. So instant AoE, and then whomever is in that area is silenced for 5 seconds. You can move away, whatever, but you can't do anything for 5 seconds. So I like that change, because again, it goes into the same idea that we want Morgan to be more disruptive and to I think she had some trouble getting some of these things off. This is nice because Aura of Silence, the way it used to be, was that it was an aura around her, a very long aura, but an aura around her. So she would actually have to stick with everybody as they're running away. Now she can kind of cast Aura of Silence and back out and still keep that range like she should be. So very cool changes on Morgan. I'm excited to see how they work in the alpha. Rollins, a couple of changes to Rollins. They said that they reduced the health by 50, went from 450 to 400. Basic reasoning for this is because they noticed that Rollins, the way he plays, is his survivability comes from being able to move and being very mobile. So they reduced his health because he's so mobile anyway, it's already hard enough to kill him. So they kind of, to balance that out, keep the mobility, they reduce the health. Kind of makes sense. Rollins' primary attack strength ratio, so his scaling has been reduced from 0.6 to 0.5, a very, very small change. Ability 1 attack strength, his power shot has been reduced from 0.8 to 0.65. So basically they were kind of starting to see that Rollins was kind of becoming an assassin towards, you know, the third or fourth tier of attack damage. I mean, once he got to fourth tier of attack damage, it was really hard to stay alive against a Rollins. So they basically said that he was scaling too fast, a little bit like Bonnie. So they've reduced his scaling just by a little bit. I would imagine we're still going to see a fair amount of shredding with Rollins. I don't know that this is going to do too much to his viability, but he's still going to be a powerhouse, honestly. Let's see, Spartacus. So Spartacus reduced how far Spartacus can move forward during primary attack. So this one's a little complicated. So when Spartacus would auto attack, he would actually dash forward a little bit, and it would be just out of range for the person being attacked, the warrior being attacked, to counter. So if Spartacus would attack, the enemy would be knocked back, would try to counter, and would miss, and then Spartacus would move in and be able to hit again. So now what happens is Spartacus attacks, they're knocked back. Spartacus attacks, he doesn't slide as far, so it's still a knockback. If you whiff and he moves in, there's still a time to counter. So that's basically what the deal is. So that should be an interesting change. There was a lot of times where I saw basically you would be stun locked by a Spartacus. It would be, you know, auto attack, or auto attack. You know, you wouldn't be able to get out of it. You know, into a Ragnarok or something. So or sorry, Ragnarok's Thorgrim. Anyway, so Spartacus. I'm getting ahead of myself. They also reduced the ultimate attack strength ratio from 1 to 0.7, which is a big hit. Primary attack strength ratio from 0.7 to 0.6. So basically, again, they were seeing this Spartacus becoming too much of an assassin, and instead of a fighter, as they're calling it, and so they kind of reduced that to make it so that, you know, you're not just diving the back line, you do your quick ultimate into a knockback and then get out after you've killed somebody. So he's going to be played more of a fighter, and not, you know, diving the squishies, taking them out really quick and then getting out. I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful than that. And Thorgrim's perfect, guys. We all knew it. We all knew that Thorgrim is perfect, but there's one thing that they did to actually help him a little bit. Canceling out of his primary attack into an ability happens 8 frames faster now. So kind of the same thing that we were seeing with the Black Knight. Now when you do your auto attack, your primary attack, it will cancel out of that auto attack 8 frames faster. So a little bit more than a tenth of a second faster. Which will be nice. So you can, you know, do your auto attack and then more quickly get into some abilities. Guys, that is the 0.1.0 patch notes for the first day of the alpha. If you guys like this video, please like it, subscribe it, share it, all those good things. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think, as well as give me some ideas on what you might want to see as far as videos coming in the future. One of the things I'd like to do is to possibly do a 101 style video where I give some tips and tricks for playing Breakaway. I've had a fair amount of experience with it so far. I'm really looking forward to getting in and playing with you guys in the future. But until then, guys, my name is Mac and Jeeves, and we will see you in the arena.